Hi guys, so this is our reading today. Remember today reading is optional. The only thing you have to do today is your math lesson. So reading, language arts, and social studies are all can-do lessons. I hope you choose to do this reading lesson at some point throughout this week because it is a really great story. Today in reading, we are going to be talking about theme again. Theme is one of my favorite skills that we practice throughout the year, and this is a really good story. It has a really good message to learn, a good lesson for your own life, because remember that's what theme is all about. Now, we just talked about theme last week. This is going to be a little bit different. It's not going to be a reader's theater. This is going to be a historical fiction story, so it means it's something that is not a completely true story, but it is based on some things that did happen in history. And so you are going to be completing this graphic organizer again, just like you did last Wednesday. That's in your turn book. We're going to be using the star strategy again to help us, and you're going to be practicing the theme on IXL. Now, I know this was something that you did last week, but this week maybe you can try to do it again and maybe get a better score this time or earn even more points with IXL. So let's go ahead and look how we can determine the theme with this new story this week. And so we're going to start with the beginning. We are going to be supporting the theme using evidence from the text. And we're going to be doing this because this is one of our standards, right? Being able to retell and identify the themes in these works. And this is talking about another way of saying theme is the lesson that we can use in our own life, right? We think of the message, right? The message. So we think it's about me and my life. So we shouldn't be talking about characters from the story here. It's what did the characters learn that I can do in my life? How can this apply to me, right? It's what the author wants me to learn from the story. It's going to be some broad idea, some big idea for me. It's normally not told straight in the text. It's normally something that I have to kind of think about on my own, use what I learned from the text and what I know in my own life. Remember, that's called an inference. Some different ideas that we've talked about with theme. We've learned that there's so many types of themes and lessons you can learn. We've had this paper that was printed off for us in our reading folder. Here are some other examples other than just like never giving up, believing in yourself. There's some of like hard work's paid off, right? Be true to yourself. Dreams can come true, right? So it depends on the story. Sometimes they're called morals. In this story, though, it is going to be considered a theme or a lesson. And this story this week is called Nora's Ark. It's a little bit long. We can read it together if you would like during our Google Classroom or Google Meet. We can read it together. I'm going to get started on the story to help us give a little bit of background knowledge about what it's about. It says, read about a farm family that survives a storm and terrible flood. And so some of you might be thinking that you might have heard a story that's similar to Nora's Ark. There's also called Noah's Ark, right? So some of you might hear that and relate to that story. And that is the reason why the author titled this story Nora's Ark, to make you think of Noah's Ark, because it does kind of reference that there if you've ever read that story too, right? They're kind of parallel. And so our central question of the week is, how can weather affect us? So weather is going to be a big part of the story. And we are going to be using that star strategy of what is the problem? How do the characters react to the problem? How is this problem solved? And how do they grow and change? And based on those 4 questions, that should help you decide of what theme that we should learn for our own life, right? Based on what did the character learn from the beginning to the end, that's what I should learn too. And so each one of these detail boxes should go for one of these questions to help you. And then the 5th one should be the theme box. And I'm going to model what is the problem. Now, this is kind of a long story, like I said, so I'm going to read the first 3 pages, and then I'm going to think of that first question of what is the problem. And so it takes me a little bit before I figure out what the problem is. So again, just like any beginning story of the story, a lot of it is background knowledge and learn who the character is, find out the setting, and kind of learn a little bit about the characters so that we can figure out what their problem is. So Nora's Ark, page 483 if you would like to follow along. When I was born, Grandma said I was so small I looked like a little bird. That's why I was named Wren. Grandma may look small too, but she's made of granite, and she says I'm tough, just like she is. Good thing, or we never would have survived the 1927 flood. Grandma and Grandpa lived on a little farm by a river in Vermont. They didn't have much money, but there was always plenty to eat. Milk from Grandpa's cows, vegetables from Grandma's garden, apples and plums from the orchard, fish from the river, and maple syrup that Grandpa and Grandma made each spring. Okay, so I'm going to stop for a minute and I'm going to think, what is something important that I just read? And I know that it said that she survived this flood. So I already know that there's a flood. So that seems like a problem right now. So I'm going to add this in here. Now, I'm going to start that with, there was a flood in their town. Don't know too much about it yet, so I'm going to read a little bit more, but I do know that there was a flood. So I'm going to read a little bit more of what that means, what it means that they survived it. Grandpa was building Grandma a new house. It sat on a hill, and when finished, it would have electricity, a wringer, washing machine, and best of all, an indoor bathroom. Oh goodness, I can tell that this is an old story because this is an old story from that's why it's called historical fiction, because an indoor bathroom, doesn't everybody have an indoor bathroom? But back in the day, I know they didn't. They used to have to go to the bathroom outside. They didn't have washing machines. They didn't even have electricity. They didn't even have lights in their house. They had to use candles. All right, I'm going to keep reading. I don't need a new house, Horace, Grandma said. We've lived here for 40 years, raised 8 children, and been as happy as a family could be. That new house is just gravy. What do you mean? I asked her. Grandma thought she could explain it to me. You like potatoes, don't you, Wren? Yes, ma'am, I told her. Grandma made the best mashed potatoes in the world, with lots of milk, butter, and pepper in them. You can make a meal out of just your potatoes. You like gravy on them? I reckon Grandma did make good gravy. But your potatoes taste good without gravy, too, I told her. Exactly, Grandma said. Gravy tastes good, but you don't need it, and I don't need that new house. I like living here. But Grandpa kept right on building. When it began to rain on November 2nd, 1927, no one along the river had any idea 9 inches of rain would fall in 2 days. Life in Vermont was about to change forever. Ooh, that sounds important. So they said that there was 9 inches of rain that would fall in just 2 days. That's a lot of rain. It says the rain came down in torrents. It drummed so loudly that on the roof that we couldn't talk. Grandma spent the morning baking bread. By noon, she'd made 27 loaves. Grandma, why do you make so much bread? I shouted. Grandma watched the water stream down the windows. We might need it, she said, but I couldn't imagine how we'd eat 27 loaves of bread. When Grandpa came in for lunch, he poured a quart of water out of each boot. I've never seen the river rise so fast, he said. I think we'd best get up to the new house. So that's something that's happening too. It says that the river is rising so fast. And they're going up to this new house here, which is up here on this hill. And so if the water's rising, it will have to take longer before it gets to this house. So that means their old house is down here at the bottom of the hill. So when I think of the problem, I'm thinking that we know that there was a flood. The river is rising fast near their farmhouse. They have to go to the new house. So that's kind of where we're at right now, is thinking about what the problem is. So that's kind of got a lot of problems, it seems like, so far, with thinking about that essential question. And we're going to have to continue reading to find out how they react to this problem of the river rising and this flood that happens and having to go up to this new house that Grandma doesn't even want, right? And then you're going to have to find out, how do they solve this and what did they learn from the story? And then hopefully at the end you can figure out, what lesson should we learn? What can we take away from this story that I can apply to my own life? So that's what I'm going to ask you to do. So after you practice theme a little bit more, go and finish this Nora's Ark and fill in this graphic organizer in your turn book. And then explain your thoughts. What did you think about this story? What lesson did you learn? And explain that to me on Flipgrid. Okay, it's kind of a long story, like I said, so if you want to read it with us, you definitely can, and we can work this out together. Okay, thanks. Have fun and good luck. Have a great day.